Star blessings. Let's talk about Venus, the goddess, Venus transiting through Cancer. So I was, reflecting on a few things that really do speak to more bigger picture collective matters. But I think it's pretty important with, I suppose, what's been transpiring the last few years, and certainly of late since Pluto ingressed into Aquarius. And so what I'm talking about is that all the nodes have, all the planets have nodes, right? And for the most part, most astrologers just reference the moon's nodes, right? South node, north node to the moon. And relative to solar and lunar eclipses, which the nodes are always involved in that scheme of things. In fact, it's because of the nodes that we do have eclipses. So, but anyway, the point is that every planet has a node, two nodes, and the nodes for the outer planets particularly have a very slow journey through a particular axis. And the nodes to Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter for all of us, every single human being, are in Capricorn, Cancer, South node in Capricorn, North node in Cancer. And I was just revisiting some material by Jeffrey Wolf Green where he correlates those nodes, specifically Pluto, Saturn and Jupiter, and especially Pluto, as the transition of when those nodes went into Capricorn and Cancer correspond to the shift, transition collectively from the matriarch to the patriarch. And it makes sense if you think about what he says, and if you think about the nature of those planets, and if you think about when it happened, which was thousands of years ago, and you look at history, it fits the whole model fits perfectly. So why is that significant at the moment? Well, it's significant in bigger themes happening collectively over really long periods of time. But in the more sort of in the present, the thing that I was thinking about was, well, Venus in Cancer, which happens every year, obviously, every time she goes through Cancer, she's actually connecting to the nodes of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto's north nodes in Cancer. So she's activating those nodes every time she passes them, which is every year, right? Once a year. And that's been happening for a very, very long time. So whether we are aware of it or not, whether we are in tune with what that feels like, or what that activates, or how that manifests, is another story. But I guess if we put our attention on it, our focus on it, and consider it, we might be able to work with that Venus energy in even a more conscious manner. And also within that as well, because Chiron has been in Aries since 2018, and is still in Aries at the moment, and will be there until 2027. It's Chiron spends quite a while in the sign of Aries. Some signs Chiron moves fairly quickly through, and other signs it could spend years moving through that sign, and Aries happens to be one of those signs where it spends a long time. So of course Aries is square to the polarity of Cancer and Capricorn. And in terms of the political and collective issues at the moment relative to identity, male, female, gender, biology, you know, that whole eruption of debate conflict position and so forth. I find that that really corresponds a lot to Chiron in Aries. And those nodes of those planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, which are all in Cancer, Capricorn, it means that Chiron has been squaring and will be squaring those nodes, right? Has been for a few years and will be for a few more years. And I think that's also largely connected to the activation of this issue in our reality at the moment. And because it's Chiron, of course, there's a lot of sensitive positions, right, about this subject and what's right about it, what's wrong about it, you know, politically or philosophically, or however you wish to look at it. And so Chiron really brings up the wounds of, I suppose, the concepts and the subject matter and people's personal feelings around those issues, including, well, I suppose both sides of the fence, right? Because everyone has their different position in it and their different feelings about it and so forth. And of course, Mars has been transiting Cancer as well, and still is in Cancer. And I think that's built up a lot of anger, animosity and conflict in communities. And now with Venus moving into Cancer, it's just going to amplify a lot of this even more, even though it is Venus. Now, Venus is the goddess, right? The goddess of love. And at the most evolved level, she would be the pure embodiment of the fabric of love, right, in our field of experience and more so in our heart. But Cancer is the mother, the protector, the nurturer, the one who seeks to establish security and safety for children, for her family, for her tribe, the people that she cares about. So, and with Venus being the archetype that also corresponds to listening, Mercury is hearing, the anatomy of hearing, the ear. But Venus is the archetype that really speaks to the ability to listen. So Venus's journey in Cancer is going to be a lot about a lot of sensitivity, vulnerability, and raw emotion that is activated in different sectors, tribes, individuals, families, and so forth. And Venus in Cancer doesn't really is like very powerful in empathetically tuning into the vibration and resonance of emotional content, right? Her own and whomever she's encountering. So, but she doesn't really articulate and verbalize and communicate. She goes through that journey really with the emotional body, right? Because Cancer corresponds to the emotional body and also the inner child as well. So there's a few levels really when we think about Venus in Cancer. We can think about Venus in Cancer activating the nodes to Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, the north nodes, that is. And the north nodes in Cancer, relative to those planets, is speaking to what the collective is evolving towards, which is kind of going, it's going back in a way, because and Cancer, of course, rules the past, right? And Cancer is certainly an archetype that corresponds to feminine, matriarch, natural law, things like that. not necessarily natural law, that's actually Sagittarius, but just from the point of view of that feminine mothering, earth mother, womb holder, container. The moon is a container of everything, right? So, and the moon, of course, is the planet that is associated with Cancer. So moon and Venus are both feminine vibrations, right? That do have to do with connecting, right? Caring, connecting, sharing, nurturing, protecting. That's what the feminine archetype has, a natural inherent disposition, right, in terms of how it manifests. And because Cancer is such a protective sign, it's extremely protective and extremely sensitive, and can be really activated if it feels threatened, or if somebody is threatening its family, right? Its tribe, its children. So I think there's going to be, a lot of females, a lot of women that are going to be really creating an even bigger movement about the protection of children. And I think that's an important matter. What we do as consenting adults is our own free will, free choice, for sure. But I think, and I've said this in a previous video, when it comes to children, we, as adults and as parents or caregivers, we do have, a duty and a responsibility, which is the opposite of Cancer. It's the Capricorn part. In a very healthy way, the Capricorn part can be creating the appropriate boundaries, structures to bring in the support and nurturing care, protection, for children. Obviously, at the other end of the spectrum of that Capricorn energy, when it's operating in a suppressed manner, then it really comes up more as that suppressive, oppressive, controlling, suffocating way of controlling and being, as it were. So there's a few interesting things going on from that level, because Venus will square Chiron as well, and she will also conjunct Lilith in the next few weeks while she transits through Cancer. And those are two very powerful symbols. Lilith is a very powerful archetype for the feminine that has been suppressed. And, there's very sensitive subjects and topics going on at the moment, which I've noticed in many different platforms and conversations and debates and so on and so forth. And I don't want to sound like I'm one-sided. I'm trying to be very objective and see it from everybody's point of view, but I can't help but notice that it's gotten to the point at the moment where a woman doesn't feel like she has the right, or she doesn't feel comfortable addressing the question, what is a woman? Because the minute she does define what is a woman, there's an attack that follows that, and a judgment, an attack based on a certain community at the moment that are identifying as women. And then there's it's just really shit what's going on, to be honest. It's pretty shitty, because there doesn't seem to be any peace or resolution happening. There just seems to be more fuel added to the fire every time, and it's just getting from bad to worse. I'm curious to see what will unfold over time. But in any case, I think these energies at the moment are going to really bring these matters up even more so. I might just share my screen and just bring up the chart for the current transits. So there's Venus in Cancer. It just went into Cancer late last night, I think it was. So it's going to be, a quick movement. As we know, Venus doesn't, it moves pretty fast. She moves pretty fast. So she's going to, fly through Cancer over the next 3.5, 4 weeks, something like that. But it's kind of interesting because the Cancer journey is going to take us on that inner sort of journey, because Cancer is very much it's a subjective sign. It's a sign of mother. It's a sign of security and safety and protection. It's the nurturer. It's the emotional body, and it's the inner child. Creatively speaking, on a more positive level, Venus in Cancer is extremely creative. Cancer is one of the most imaginative signs, actually. I've seen over the years many charts of artists who have Sun in Cancer or Venus in Cancer or Mercury in Cancer, so the inner planets, who are just incredible with their imagination and their artistry as a result. So creatively speaking, this is a very rich field for us to tap into the Venusian artistic vibration of Venus through the archetype of Cancer, which enables us to create so much through the richness of the imagination. So there's that level, of course, as well, which is always beautiful. The expression of artistry. Of course, everyone has different taste and different opinions. That's Mercury, that's Gemini. We always have our own personal opinion and taste. But still, there are lots of different types of expressions of art, and art, for the most part, is usually inspiring, uplifting, and brings joy and happiness and appreciation, which is Venus, of course, into our lives, whether it's ourselves participating and creating something, which doesn't have to be that traditional art. The expression of art has infinite faces. So there's that in the mix as well, which is the more enjoyable component. But from the external Saturnian reality and the current themes and storylines that are present in the current consciousness, if you like, they are very important themes that are bringing up a lot of concern, a lot of debate, a lot of confusion. There's a lot going on. And so, as I was saying, Mars in Cancer, I think, has really aggravated a lot of those themes that are current in our world today about gender, sexuality and kids and so on and so forth, and people's rights and things of that nature, the matter of abortion and so forth. That's still quite a controversial issue, in certain states in the USA, where laws are being either permitted or not permitted. That's creating a lot of controversy because there's a clear division of that issue as well. So it's all pretty chaotic, really, isn't it? And with Venus in Cancer, because she is the goddess, and Venus in Cancer is the journey just before Venus then ingresses into Leo and goes retrograde in Leo, right, and becomes the morning star, which I'm going to come back and talk about that. So I won't focus on that today, but I just wanted to bring it up as a way of seeing how this journey is unfolding, right? Because Venus in Cancer is she's going to get her claws out, those claws of the crab. They can be pretty, pretty bitey. They can be pretty effective in what they need to do to claw, to protect and so forth, right? But, it is a very vulnerable sign, Cancer. There's a lot of, so much sensitivity in this sign, and so much insecurity can be evoked or provoked through what's appearing externally. So the emotional insecurity that can be triggered through circumstances that are appearing around us that threaten the safety and security of those that we love and care about, that Cancer mother archetype can become the dark mother, as it were, right? And that can be perceived or received or expressed in a lot of different ways. It just depends on who it is, what's going on, and how it's projected and for what purpose, and so forth. But I think there's going to be just a stronger cry is a good word for Cancer, a stronger cry and need for the protection of women's rights, women's safety issues. Now, again, this is going to be a controversial comment or subject for some people, but if it is, then so be it. I have to say that as a woman, and this is one of the issues that's being debated and creating extensive conflict in lots of different communities, schools, homes, you name it, is if you've got a child, a daughter, and she's in the toilet, would you feel comfortable with a man entering the toilet, but he's just dressed as a woman? I don't even feel comfortable with that, really, as an adult. I don't mind how other people want to dress and how they identify and express, but the toilet is a pretty private space, and it should be a safe space as well. So these are the things that are coming up in lots of different ways, and Venus in Cancer is going to ramp things up, and this of course leads to Venus, as I said, going retrograde in Leo, but then being reborn as the morning star. And one thing to remember about Venus is that when you're talking about the evening star and the morning star, the morning star goddess is the absolute warrior goddess. She's the one that will go out there in battle, with blazing guns, and she's not going to hold back. She has that capacity. In the ancient times, back in the Mayan cultures, which are ancient cultures, right? They relied so much on observing Venus's movement in the sky, and knowing the exact timed moment of her movement, of when she went retrograde, and then when she turned to station direct, and then how she was reborn as the morning star, and so forth. And they aligned their battles on the earth plane according to Venus's movements, because they knew the power of Venus as the morning star, which is the warrior goddess, right? So think about, we're moving through Venus in Cancer, which is going to stir up a lot of insecurity in a lot of people, which is going to be expressed in strong emotional ways, right? And then from that, we're leading into eventually Venus becoming the morning star, which can is going to be the energy of the warrior goddess taking some action, right, around things that need very specific action. So it's going to be interesting. And even Venus in Leo, Leo is the sign of the child as well. So there's a lot of, these are like the childlike energies, Aries, Cancer, Leo, Gemini. They're all the children in the zodiac, if you like. So, we have Mercury in Taurus, we have the Sun in Taurus, Uranus, of course, is still in Taurus, Jupiter in Aries, soon to go into Taurus, and I'll come back and talk about that separately. Venus in Cancer, Mars in Cancer. Venus will be towards the end of her journey in Cancer, and then Mars jumps into Leo. And then, of course, Venus will eventually move into Leo as well. So these are signs to do with the children, the child, the inner child, security, things like that. And they're highly activated points in our reality at the moment, based on very specific desires, concepts, needs, and so forth, right? So unfortunately, it's going to be pretty animated. The animation of Cancer is just seen through the emotions primarily, and those emotions are very strong and very raw, and can be the instigation of things that need to be attended to, let's just say. So the motivation behind Cancer is to feel emotionally stable and secure within, and anything that threatens that creates the problem for Venus in Cancer. And at a natal level, if you had Venus in Cancer, there's a whole story connected to that, and from an evolutionary perspective, and what's required in that soul's growth and so forth. But speaking to this more from that collective level at the moment, Venus moving through Cancer as reflecting the backdrop of the current themes in our societies and culture, and in our collective consciousness, what's coming up, so it's going to be a long sort of battle, I think. And even though Venus in Cancer is only there for a few weeks, that's going to create a very rich animation of emotions that are going to go pretty wild, I think. And then, moving forward, this issue is not going to resolve by the time Venus leaves Cancer. This is going to be something that is becoming some type of movement moving forward into our future. So I don't know what the resolution is going to be, but we'll just have to wait and see. And I suppose within that, we have the matter of Chiron in Aries, which is forming a T-square to Cancer Capricorn, which are the nodes of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. So you can see that Chiron, which is going to be connected to those nodes until essentially around about 2027, we've still got a lot to resolve around this identity crisis existing in our collective family. And as I said, on the 25th of May, Venus will be around about 17 of Cancer, and she will form a square to that Chiron. So I think those days, like 16th, 17th, 18th, 25th of May. So 24th, 25th, 26th of May. Those days are going to be quite important around these matters with children and protecting children, things like that. I think something will probably show up at that time, in the collective. Like some incident will occur that will capture, perhaps some different perspectives, and capture attention in something that's quite a significant issue in our cultures at the moment. And then on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of June, Lilith, well, let's just go back for a moment. Lilith has been in and out of Cancer. I use the true position of Lilith, so that means she jumps around in 2 or 3 signs in 1 year, right? She goes backwards and forwards, a lot more difficult to track, but that is the true position of her movement. The main position is just a clean, easier way to work with tracking her. But mean is implying that you are averaging something out, right? Whereas the true position shows her true nature. True position reflects the way she was not able to be controlled and suppressed and dominated, right? That she was autonomous and free and wild. She's the wild feminine, right? And so the true position reflects that in her astronomical movement, in how she just jumps backwards and forwards in a couple of different signs every year. So last year and this year, she's been in and out of Cancer and Leo. And there might be another sign there too, I've just forgotten, but mainly Cancer and Leo, at least of late. And over here you see her, she's 27 Cancer. So, you know, she's been aligning with Mars as well, which is creating a lot of the motion, emotion, right? Stirring up of the emotion in the archetype of Cancer through Mars, which is, you know, creating this conflict and aggression between very specific communities. And I don't think, one thing I will say, I don't think anger is the answer. And I don't think anger and conflict in a way that doesn't allow either party to speak, or the inability to hold space for each other, doesn't produce a good result. And that's Mars, of course, because Mars is not interested in being diplomatic and holding space. Mars just wants to get out his gun and just go, bang, I'm done with you, removed you. It's Venus that creates the diplomacy and creates a space to be able to hear and listen to the feelings and emotions of everyone. So perhaps Venus's journey in Cancer at the more positive level can be that ability to hold space, to validate everyone's position, as it were, emotional state, feelings. And I think that's important. But I think when it comes to decisions made around the welfare of children, then we must bring in some laws around that. We must bring in, I think it would be ideal if we could bring in natural law, because natural law is something that is natural. It corresponds to the earth. Natural law is something that we are all naturally attuned to, even though over thousands of years we've been programmed and conditioned to succumb and abide by and follow and believe in man-made law, which includes religions. And so much, we've been so programmed that we absolutely believe that these man-made laws are the truth, are the right way, and they're not. They're just not. Those man-made laws were driven and motivated. The objective of those was to create control because of the level of desire over attachment, namely money and property and land, right? That's where these laws all were driven from that objective. Not about people's safety and well-being and harmony and peace. It's got nothing to do with any of that. So, you know, we've got a long way to go in terms of collective evolution, right? Because we've got to catch up to those nodes in Cancer, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. And by the time we, from a collective evolutionary level, by the time we reach there, because it's a slow integrative process, when we get there, we'll be in touch with natural law, Mother Earth, Gaia, but we will have a different relationship with it, you know, because we've evolved. Even if we go back to matriarchal natural way of living and law and so forth, it will look different to what it did 6,000 years ago because we've evolved and grown. So it can't not look different. But losing touch with that completely, it would be the end, our demise here on this earth. We have to find a way to reintegrate, re-embrace natural law. So, you know, these nodes of Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto in Cancer, the North nodes in Cancer, that's what we are evolving towards collectively, albeit predominantly unconsciously. And you can see it's predominantly unconscious because look at the state of the world. Can you see any narrative from that consensus reality level, right, that is motivated by equality, fairness, justice, peace, harmony, balance, unity, creating more of a fair playing field for everybody, as opposed to the elites having everything, and then we have, you know, the majority of people down here having barely nothing, right? That's a complete injustice. It really is, because in truth, no one owns anything, and no one's going to take anything with them either. This is all just based on patriarchal, egotistical, personality-based greed. And have we evolved through that? No, clearly not. So, you know, in the bigger picture level, that's kind of what we're working with, right? Working towards as well. And, you know, Pluto in Aquarius is going to assist greatly in the collective evolution because, you know, Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus, at least in evolutionary astrology it is. In traditional astrology, it's ruled by Saturn and, as they say, associated to Uranus as well. And there's truth in all of that, but from an evolutionary perspective, Aquarius is a Uranian signature or archetype, and if that is true, which I think it is, Pluto in Aquarius is about you know, waking up the human soul collective consciousness, right, into the next stage of evolution, really. Because we simply cannot continue in the way we have for thousands of years, you know, and just being programmed and numbed down and asleep to the truth of what's really true and what's really real, what's really important, you know? And that's largely being done through the enslavement, right? Enslavement of humanity. Keep them enslaved, keep them numbed, keep them struggling to survive, and then, you know, we've got them we've got humanity in complete control, exactly where we want them to be, working for us. I know that sounds a bit bleak, but it's hard to deny that that's a possibility, that's going on or has been going on. If you can't see that, then sorry, you're blind. This channel's not for you. But I know that you guys, the majority of you that do watch my videos and my transmissions and so forth, I know that you all feel this and see this. You understand it. Um, if you didn't, I don't think you'd even be really following any of my astrology or the other people that you follow as well, depending, of course, on who you follow. Because there are some astrologers that are not really astrologers. But anyway, that's another subject. And then there are, of course, some magnificent, brilliant astrologers publicly out there. And there are many that are not out there publicly that are brilliant. So I guess, from a more personal perspective, just to draw it back in, I know I've focused a lot today on the external sort of reality and what's happening on that collective level, but I just felt it important to explore and to think about from this larger picture of these planetary nodal axes of Cancer Capricorn, because Venus has just moved into Cancer. So I guess when we are working with the goddess energy, every time she ingresses into Cancer and she has contact with those 3 nodes in Cancer of Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, there's I see that as a pure, authentic connection to natural law, to mother, to our own inner emotional state, security, inner child. And I mean, fundamentally, Venus in Cancer, from an evolutionary perspective, she's learning how to establish a deep sense of security within and not project that out there and look for it out there and expect it from out there without even really verbalizing it, because Cancer doesn't verbalize, it just makes noises, as it were. It's to think about the infant, right, that is hungry, that is thirsty. It's just going to cry. It's not going to communicate it. So the Venus in Cancer is a lovely transit to find better or more holistic or more authentic ways to connect with our own inner emotional child, our own inner emotional content, our own inner emotional insecurities and vulnerabilities. And with Venus there, it's an opportunity to pour more of that love into those components of ourselves, because insecurity, which can be activated by numerous things in the chart, tends to be the product of difficulties, conflict, fear, projection, judgment, things like that. I mean, when somebody is more integrated and feels more emotionally stable and safe and secure within themselves, they are less likely to react in an aggressive and controlling and manipulative way towards others or towards situations. That's the benefit of this. That's the benefit of evolving through the archetype of Cancer. We get to establish a deeper roots of security within ourselves, regardless of what is appearing externally, and have that ability to harness and nurture and sustain that deep, heartfelt soul security that we all need. That's what I see with Venus in Cancer on that personal level for us, at least. And I mean, within that there is also the journey of our insecurities being sort of more at the surface level whilst Venus is in Cancer. Or flip side to that, being able to be more attentive and emotionally available towards, you know, others and people you care about, family members, children, but certainly first and foremost your own emotional state, to provide space and a healthy, an emotional healthy, integrated version of ourselves. We must tend to our own garden, you know, our own emotional garden within, because no thing or no person can truly give you that security that you need, not in the long term. And some things or some people or some situations might fill that little need of security for a little while, but then something will happen that will change that, and then you'll be back in the same position again, feeling vulnerable, feeling insecure. That's why it's just up to us to constantly tend to that garden of those emotional security needs and the insecurities that are activated by different circumstances, events, and so forth. By tending to that, we create less of a reactive way of living, as it were, and we can be more, feel more stabilized, more grounded, more in control of our own emotional state. This is where the Capricorn polarity comes in a healthy way. It's learning to appreciate, embody and embrace all the emotional content, security, that things that bring up insecurities as well, and things that make us feel secure, everything in between those two scales, if you like. Cancer, Venus in Cancer. And then to bring in the responsibility side, Capricorn, the opposite, right? This is the healthiest way to balance these archetypes, these axes. It's to be in touch with your raw emotional stuff without projecting it out there and blaming others for what you feel, right? And just taking responsibility, Capricorn, for your own emotional state, even when you feel insecure or secure or whatever it is, and taking responsibility for tending to that garden within and tending to that child within that is always wanting to feel that safety and security. That inner child is always alive inside all of us. It doesn't matter what age we are. And it's always needing to feel safe and secure. So when we have, you know, planets moving through the archetype of Cancer, that inner child is stirred. It wakes up, you know, because the energy is palpable and it's reaching in to our own levels of emotional security or insecurity, in order perhaps to work more on that, right? To recognize, well, where do I still feel incredibly insecure? And how can I work on that without it being codependent on this or that or him or her? It's called evolution. All right. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. Screen's so blurry. Weird weather here. Okay, I'll be back with Jupiter in Taurus very, very soon. So, as always, thanks for watching. Leave your questions and comments below, and see you guys very soon. Bye.